Welcome, guys, to the Peak Mindset Show. My name is Mathew Park, and our aim is to inspire people to wake up in actualizing their inner potential through the learnings from the masters in life, business, and athletics. We have a very unique guest on the show today. He is the founder and owner of a successful corporate performance organization specializing in harnessing the discipline of good nutrition and exercise and translating it into the best all-around performance in business and life. He is noted for his personal transformation from a 280-pound overweight corporate executive to 185-pound fitness celebrity, being on the cover of health fitness magazines across the world, but pioneering some of the mainstream awareness of autoimmune diseases and inflammation. Thomas's background is in sports psychology, although it is his passion for psychology coupled with a career in healthcare as a physical recruiter and owner of an ancillary lab services company that sparked his love for nutritional science and what makes the body tick. He is currently working on the second phase of trials with doctors at the UCLA to formulate a strain of probiotic bacteria that may regulate inflammatory markers in the human body. It is partially due to his involvement in the study that he has developed an interest in the world of cellular inflammation. Residing in Santa Barbara, California with his wife, 4 dogs, and 3 horses, Thomas promotes a lifestyle of living as close to the earth as possible to obtain the best possible results while still achieving maximal performance in all areas of his life. With great pleasure, I want to welcome to the show Mr. Thomas DeLauer.
What's going on, Matthew? Thanks for having me, man.
Great to have you, Thomas. So, Thomas, you are in California right now in the beautiful sunny weather. How is everything in Santa Barbara today?
It's not so sunny today, but we're getting the rain that we need. So I'm not complaining because I know just like in good old California fashion, the clouds will blow over in about 12 hours and we'll be left with a nice, crisp, sunny day. So I'm not complaining.
Perfect. Well, you've been really involved in this industry. Obviously you kind of sparked up in the last couple of years and you're almost everywhere. I saw some of your videos recently. So much value and inspiration you give to the area of inflammation, exercise, nutrition, and so much more, even in mindset. So Thomas, but also the other thing is you come from a corporate background, but also fitness and kind of a mix of different things, from 280-pound guy to now losing all that body fat and becoming this fitness celebrity, just crushing it. Tell us about your story, kind of where you came from and all that good stuff, because we want to know more about you, Thomas.
Sure. Yeah, I'll back up to being 11 years old and running my first marathon. And I have to start there because a lot of people will look at my picture at 280 pounds and think that I might have just grown up this, overweight slob or whatever you want to call it. But the fact is that I went from athlete to overweight back to athlete. So I really truly went from fit to fat to fit. And I think that it's that journey of actually going back and then back again that taught me a lot. So when I was 11, I ran my first marathon, and it was a matter of like everything I put my mind to ever since I was 6 years old, I just sought through to completion regardless. And sometimes that would be like being a nuclear weapon that you can just point in one direction, but you don't want to point it in the wrong direction because I will go that way. So it was like, here I was, this hyper-focused kid, understanding the value of running and how much I loved it and how much I really was getting out of just athleticism in general. And then from there, starting to injure my knees from running so much, even at a young age. So I started getting into weight training, saying, okay, this is a way I can still get the same kind of effect on my body, but in a totally different way, different kind of endorphins. And I really loved it. So transition, a couple of years after that, go on to play rugby, end up being an all-state rugby player, played as a winger, which is, if you watch rugby or pay attention to rugby, it's the fast guy that's on the outside of the field that usually scores, but also usually gets beat up the most too. And so then from there, graduated, went on to school. But then when I started getting into the corporate world, I started getting into the world of being an executive recruiter, which is where I was at that point. I started having a fair bit of success in business. And I started realizing that if I applied the same discipline that I had in my workouts, in my athletics, that I could have all this success in business. And I got the taste of blood, so to speak. And I'm just not gonna lie, 2 years goes by and then all of a sudden I look down and I'm going, holy cow, I'm 90 pounds more than I was.
Wow.
I've got all this success in business. I'm making good money. I'm still, I'm with my wife. I met my wife in high school. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, wait a minute, something's got to change. Like something has to change here. And maybe it was the process of actually having a little bit of financial stability at that time to be able to actually be able to take a step away for a second and say, wait a minute, when I remove myself from this, all of a sudden I'm like, what am I doing this for? And so I knew deep down that I had the roots, I had the clay mass, so to speak, to get in shape, get back in shape, and really just get back on it. And, even through the time that I was heavy, I was still working out 1 or 2 days a week. I just wasn't paying attention to other things in my life. So, pulled myself up by the bootstraps, got on the show, and just ended up doing it. And then eventually, I told my wife, I think I mentioned this to you earlier. I mentioned to my wife, said, mark my words, in 18 months, I'm going to be on the cover of a magazine. And 16 and a half months later, I was. And that was just absolutely life-changing. Ended up, leaving that corporate background, that whole world behind. And, now I'm doing what I love and loving every minute of it.
What did you take away as the biggest lesson you learned in that transformational period?
It was so much more than physical. It was like what I learned. People always ask me that, and a lot of times they're prefacing that with like, what's the biggest health thing that you learned in that period? I'm like, no, it wasn't health related at all. What it was the fact that if I just find a little bit of balance at a higher level, where instead of just trying to be good at one thing all the time, you don't have to be a jack of all trades and be good at all things all the time, but it's all about your standards and your perception. And if you raise your values in everything you can do in life, and you look at life as one unified object rather than just different parameters, you just go and you kick ass in everything that you do. So that was sort of my mindset there. It was like, I don't have to just be good at one thing, and I don't have to be a jack of all trades, master of none. I can rise to the occasion and be good in everything. And then suddenly you manifest that energy. It just comes from nowhere when you really actually recognize it. I hope that makes sense.
Can you define though, like how you got to that state where you were more balanced? Because you mentioned you came from a very one-track mind thinking process, and now you mentioned about that kind of almost like balancing it better. What did you have to do to make that happen? Like, how do you do that right now in your daily life right now?
Yeah, it's like a super good question. So a lot of times it almost always comes down to some form of call to action in your life. And although I wasn't sitting there dying per se, everything happened at the right time. My wife was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that dramatically changed how we had to eat and how we had to look at life. My dad, within 2 weeks of that, was also diagnosed with terminal cancer. And there were all these things that just hit at once. So I had this call to action. And unfortunately, a lot of times it does take an external call to action to realize this. And people may not always recognize that there is a CTA, but there is. So that's what it was for me, to be able to say, okay, like everything I'm doing in my life, whether I'm good at it or not, if I go too full bore into that world, it's not healthy. It's just not. I always joke about my dad eating salads every single night. He was so obsessed with eating salads every single night that he would, just to make sure he was having a salad, he would put ground beef in a salad, then he'd put lasagna in a salad. Then it got to the point where he was practically putting candy in a salad, but if it was a salad, it was okay. Perfect example where it's like you're so focused on just one thing, you put the blinders on and realize it becomes unhealthy. And that's where I was. So I had this external call to action that said, if you don't get your stuff together, you're going to be, to quote Tim Ferriss, you're going to be the fat old bald guy in the red BMW. And I was heading down that road, and I was not going to go there.
Wow. So like in this day and age right now, in this current lifestyle you live, how do you balance business, like your business you have right now? How do you balance time with your wife, time doing your videos, all your fitness branding you're doing? What is your strategy in doing that right now? Your routines, rituals, those kind of things that you do?
Well, to sound totally cliche, is, work smarter, not harder. It really does come down to that. You have a brain, use it. The internet also makes it very, very possible to leverage your resources, being your knowledge, being, the right team and everything like that. But I'd say, really it is setting very strict ground rules for myself. I'm a disciplined person, so allow that discipline to say, this is when it's time to stop. It takes a lot of discipline to stop someone that is wired like you and I are. Someone that wants to just push through and keep grinding and keep grinding and grinding. What you have to really dig down deep and find is that by just grinding and grinding and grinding, you're actually being weak. You need that discipline to say, it's time to stop. It's time to go home. It's time to love my wife. Because at the end of the day, it's all relative. Because if I'm not coming home at night to my wife, you may be fine right now, but 3 years from now, she's going to leave me because I'm not coming home.
Right.
So it's trying to look at things in a big picture and not just be so focused on just what's 10 feet in front of you. You focus on two things: what's right in front of you right now, and what's 10 years down the road. And so that's how I really constantly keep myself in check. That, and having an amazing support system. I've built a very good team around me that's got a very dynamic lifestyle that constantly reminds me that, hey, like, life should be fun. Like, you really should enjoy things too. And I've got some, additional little tips and tricks when it comes down to, writing, using certain planning my day out the night before, not the morning of, things like that, when you're actually truly in the state of mind that you're ready to go home. Okay, then start mapping out your day the next day, so it's what it really should look like, not when you're frantic and thinking about all the things you have to do that day.
Love that.
Yeah.
So what do you think really shaped your self-discipline from an early age?
That's a good question. I had, my mom's an amazing, amazing person. She's always been extremely, extremely hard on me in very different ways from what other people would consider being hard on you. It's not like she was like, you go to school, you get good grades. No, my mom was so unconventional. My mom would pull me out of school to go hiking. It was just crazy, weird things. Or, I went to school and lived in Italy for 6 months when I was 13 years old. I was the youngest person to backpack the John Muir Trail, which is from Yosemite down to Mount Whitney. It's 230 miles. And pulled me out of school for stuff like that. So she was very unconventional, but she held me to an extremely high standard, almost in a weird, twisted way. But I would never, ever falter for it because it was such a unique lifestyle and it shaped who I am today. And she's an amazing woman for that. But that had a big part to do with it. It was a big part that my mom was just always pushing me to be super, super different. And in order to be super different from everybody else, you have to be confident in yourself. And in order to be confident in yourself, you have to have a level of discipline to stay on the straight and narrow. Otherwise, you're just going to go off the rails and go crazy.
That's a very good point. So do you think your mom was really the shaper of who you were as far as discipline-wise to who you are today?
Aside from what might happen genetically, yes. Who knows? My dad was a very disciplined guy too, but he was a disciplined guy to the point where sometimes it was he never caught grasp of it, so it just kind of led him into a spiral, unfortunately. So my mom really just kind of always popped me right in line, kept me going on what was true for me, not what was true for what the mainstream was telling us was true.
So you talk about optimization. I noticed in a lot of things you talk about optimization, and can you define what that means exactly and what you teach and what you do?
Yeah. So, it's the reason I came down to the word optimizing is because I look at general, I'm going to jump to business for a second. I look at media buying, when you're buying media on, Facebook, on YouTube, on Google, on native, any kind of internet media that you're buying. There's always a level of optimization. And once things are optimized, they're in the groove. Your ads have to optimize. Any kind of marketing has to optimize. And that's a perfect choice of word for what happens in our bodies, because there's the phase of being optimized, but then there's the optimization phase. And that optimization phase is the grind. It's the tough part. It's the part when you're really trying to tap into what you can do. It's the part when you're trying to activate these different components of your life, whether it be your fitness, whether it be your family, whether it be your business, whether it be your spirituality, your meditation, or anything like that. There's a level of optimization that happens on all four of those levels, and then eventually gets you to a point where you're just operating at that absolute tip-top, very best that you possibly can, and it's seamless because you're optimized. It's just going. And then from there, just like you would in any kind of advertisement or anything, then you scale up. Then you hammer it up and you make it work, and you make it work at a better level.
Is that how you teach it with the business side of stuff and also with fitness? Is kind of like the same process, just working at a different level with different components?
Yeah, and everybody responds differently. Everybody has a different. So you always have your root. You always have your primary core that needs to be optimized. So the way that I look at it, there are 4 pillars that ultimately make up being totally optimized, and the ones that I just said. You've got your fitness, your health.
Fitness, yeah.
Then of course you've got your family / relationships. Mm-hmm. Then you've got your spirituality, everything like that. And then, as much as some people don't want to admit it, you have your business, you have your career. And a lot of times people want to just take those 3 pillars and then separate business entirely, simply because they're like, well, business should be separate. It should be business, especially if you're working for somebody else and you're just But in reality, no, it's a big part of your life. If you're working 40 hours a week, you are essentially married to your job. So accept the fact that it's part of your life and learn how to unify it with other components of your life. So identify those 4 pillars, but then you have to look at somebody and you have to understand what is their driving force, what pillar is holding up the weight of their building.
Oh, okay,
So
interesting.
and then from there, you have something tangible to start talking about these other pillars and bringing them in. I talk to a lot of people that, spirituality is their core pillar. And I think for some reason, it's just how I iterate content and how I put things out there that I attract a group of people that are very just spiritually involved themselves, or they meditate, or they're just very into that mindset portion. So a lot of them have put that on such a pedestal that they've sort of lost sight of the other things in their life. But then I have the other group of people that come to me that are very, very lost in their fitness, and they're prioritizing that so much. It's like that is their root, and all these other things are, just smaller percentages of their life. My goal is to bring all of those down to the same percentage, but then rise the whole thing up together.
Oh, okay.
Sort of think of it like boot camp. They always say when you're in the military, they're breaking you down as an individual, bringing you up as a team. Well, I try to do that with the pillars. I try to look at, okay, what's this one pillar that's dominating? Okay, let's break them down and then bring all of them back up together, but bigger and better than they were before.
So would financial be in the business side?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And so these 4 pillars, is that what you would take? Like, for example, if I'm coming to you, Thomas, and say, hey, Thomas, you got the fitness, you got the family relationships, you got your spirituality, and you have your business, correct?
Yes.
So if I was going to you, say, hey, Thomas, looking at these 4 areas, I'd say fitness. Let's just say fitness is my number 1 priority in my route. So, but you'd help optimize for me, for example, or somebody listening to the show today, or in the course of that your goal is to optimize all the areas so that they all kind of coordinate together, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And using and understanding that fitness is how that person is wired allows me to translate everything else from other areas of their life. So for example, if you're coming to me and you're saying, Thomas, like, I'm a fitness minded, this is where my head's at right now. I'm totally down to get as lean as I possibly can. Like, that is my focus right now. That's hardcore. I've been this way for the last couple of years. It's where my head is. I would say, Matt, that's awesome. There's 100% nothing wrong with that. That is your driver. But now I know internally, if I want you to have success in the other 3 pillars, I have to talk to you and teach you from what you know and want to learn about fitness. For example, the discipline that you're going to harness in your fitness, I want you to understand how that can be harnessed into your business. Okay, your business is hurting right now. All right, well, let me explain this to you in a way that you understand based on what your core pillar is right now. Okay, now if you're coming to me and you're just absolutely dominating in business and you're just like, I'm crushing it here. Like, I've got more money than I could even think of. I don't know, but I'm lacking purpose. I'm lacking fulfillment. And my fitness is sucking right now, and my health is sucking, and I don't know what food choices. Well, then I start explaining food and things like that in the sense of KPIs and things like that. Start understanding your food like this. Okay, let's set some key performance indicators. Let's set some stuff in business terms that you can do with your food so that you can take what you know in business and translate it over to fitness to make you a healthier person and more well-rounded. It's about applying our knowledge because we have different ways of learning and different ways of understanding. And, spiritual, the same kind of thing. Okay, let's talk about, we can get physiological with spirituality, but you can talk about just how important that is to you and how you can translate that over into business or translate that into fitness. Same thing with the relationships.
So let me ask you this. I'm taking notes here, actually, even though we're interviewing. This is a great interview, by the way. KPI-wise, how would you define KPIs, let's say, for spirituality and for family and friends? I'm just kind of curious on 2 KPIs you would measure in those areas.
Yeah, so with spirituality, it's a little bit tough, but when I look at mindset in general, so spirituality, you have to be very careful when you're talking to people because they can get very sensitive about spirituality. Especially if you're dealing with religion and things like that, if you start putting tangible KPIs on what they can do with their religion, it's very off-putting, very, very off-putting for some people, and not everyone's receptive to that. So I almost always bring it back to, neurology and just to mental health in general, because that's something that we can set actual KPIs. Be like, okay, so I want to see you meditating X amount of minutes, or I want you to be working towards that. Or if we need to gamify it, use Headspace, use Beautify, but I want you to doing X amount of minutes, and I want you to start monitoring your progress, and I want you to start monitoring your progress in other areas of your life. Okay, once you've reached 15 minutes of using Headspace for 7 days, I want you to tell me how much more focus you have when you're working on given projects. And I want you to tell me like your ability to shut off all your other devices and be able to focus on that. So with spirituality and mindset, it's definitely more difficult. Relationships, it's actually really easy because you can break it down into tangible things. You absolutely can. And men in particular think that way. Men are, we know this. It's first grade, guys. Okay? Women are emotional creatures and men are logical. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's the way it is. So as men, we want a logical answer to work with women. We want to understand, how do we gamify this? What indicators or what metrics can we put together to make my relationship with my wife better? Well, short answer is you can't always, because the female energy is going to move around. But you have to actually set some goals for yourself and set some intention. Meaning, okay, I'm going to go to lunch with my wife or my girlfriend 1 hour every single week. I'm going to make it a commitment. Let's start. And then, are you reaching these KPIs? Okay, how are you getting there? Okay, and what's improving? So when you start applying them like that to things that don't seem like they have any kind of quantifiable reasoning behind them, and you start realizing that there is, suddenly you realize that life is just one big giant puzzle and everything is quantifiable. So does that make sense?
That was awesome. That was actually really good. Now, obviously, there's obvious KPIs you can put in fitness and obvious KPIs you can put in business. But those, I always find spirituality and friends, you nailed it right in the head. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I want to change focus over to two other areas that you're very knowledgeable about, that I really feel that we haven't talked about this in the show actually ever, and that's the inflammation component and autoimmune component. And you talk about, I've seen some of your videos, they're just so full of so much value. So guys, if you haven't, go check his fan page guys out. Thomas, now is it DeLauer? Is that correct?
DeLauer.
DeLauer. I was totally off. So DeLauer.
No, you're pretty close. It's fine.
So in looking at inflammation, and obviously your wife had autoimmune issues, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and your dad, I believe, had underwent cancer before, and these are things that really inspired, obviously, these sort of things, I believe, correct?
Totally. Yep.
So what would you tell people, like obviously in the fitness arena, because honestly, I'll be honest, Thomas, I don't really read much about inflammation or autoimmune. I'm not going to lie. But I saw you talking about it, I'm like, this is kind of interesting. So can you talk a bit about how important that is for us, as whether you're an athlete, an average Joe, whatever?
Totally. Yeah. So in fact, I have a Facebook ad that's out there that goes crazy. So I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this have heard that, but I reference it to like a bee sting when it comes to inflammation. Like, okay, have you ever been stung by a bee and it gets swollen and it gets red? That is inflammation, but that's inflammation at a very acute level on the surface of your body. Now imagine that happening to your cells, at a very micro level. Imagine that kind of that die off, that overall just inflammation, literally, of your cells. So how that's important in so many areas of life is just, we could just go on forever. It's really the root of everything. I mean, more and more research is coming out and now showing that ultimately inflammation is the root of just about every disease state that there possibly is. It's the aging process. It's every kind of attack that the body has. We always have what are called inflammatory cytokines. They're things that trigger inflammation, and they're sitting there just ready to go. They're always ready to go because they're there to trigger an inflammation response when we get injured or when we're stressed or when we need inflammation. But this day and age, we are eating so many foods that are just terrible for us, and we're constantly exposed to so many environmental toxins and the BPAs and DDTs and everything like that. And then, of course, we're exposed to just a myriad of mental stressors that we just didn't even have even 25 years ago. So our bodies are constantly on this high alert where we're in a state of constant inflammatory response. Our cytokines are just going crazy. I could get totally physiological and start talking about the different, leukotrienes, LTB4 and stuff like that, but you can save that for another conversation, because basically what those are what trigger chronic inflammation. And when you have a constant nagging of these cytokines, eventually you have literally chronic inflammation, where the body is just constantly in a mild disease state, constantly trying to fight. And you may not realize it because it happens so slowly. It's kind of the law of attrition. It's like a little bit every day. Eventually, you don't realize just how tired you are because your poor cells are just under attack and they're just hurting and they're operating at much less efficiency. And so many people in the fitness world, we and I'm guilty of this too, you want to think so superficial, so surface level. oh, it's simple, calories in, calories out. I want to be leaner. I need to work harder. I need to do this. And like, no, you have to think about your body too. You really do. This, again, sounding cliche, it's your temple. You've got to take care of it, And when you start looking at, if you can focus on the cell and you can focus on taking care of the cell, then everything is going to just get better from there. And it's the fitness world and the health world are like two just opposing forces. And if I can be blunt, it's just irritated the heck out of me that they can't just come together. It's like we have fitness, we have health. The fitness people look at Men's Health magazine and say, oh, look at Men's Health. Look at that guy, so skinny. Look at him, he's running. Look at, and then the health guys say, oh, look at the fitness guys. All they care about is, just working out and having veins in their abs. And it's like, okay, you know what, guys? Well, if you applied some of the principles that you each know from these two different worlds, guess what? We can all be ripped and live for a long time. So, and the start of that comes down to inflammation. And that's why I've become obsessed with that from my world. My wife has what's called Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid condition. That's where antibodies are constantly attacking her thyroid, rendering it essentially useless at this point. She also has Lyme disease. She has chronic Lyme disease, which is caused by essentially a tick bite. But now they're finding through a lot of the research, and I'm working with Fox News on some stuff right now with the Global Lyme Alliance and working on that. But just for Lyme awareness in general. But now they're finding that Lyme might actually be spread through other means than just a tick. And so what that has done is reduced her immune system down to so little that it's made her much more susceptible to autoimmune conditions. We've only hit the tip of the iceberg with autoimmune conditions. There are so many that are going on. I mean, okay, well, obviously we've got Hashimoto, we've got rheumatoid arthritis, we've got even they're saying type 1 diabetes is even considered an inflammatory autoimmune condition. There's all kinds of things, inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, everything that if you just Google autoimmune diseases, the list is very long, and you're going to see, wow, I didn't realize that was autoimmune. What that means is your body is attacking itself, which is inflammation at its core. So if you can control inflammation, you can't heal autoimmune disease. I'm not a doctor, and I'm proud to say I'm not. That's not what I do. But if you can start to control inflammation, you can at least slow down the negative effects of an autoimmune condition.
So what are things you would suggest to someone listening right now to the show to daily habits you could improve on? Is it eating, like you always hear, eat your vegetables, the cliche, eating raw food, even when it comes to protein sources, like obviously you're training and lifting weights probably almost every single day and you look incredible, athletes like us, and what do you suggest for someone like that, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of it, but also the funny part is that everybody's different. Everybody's going to have a different inflammatory response because it comes down to what are called antibodies, what our body might see as a potential threat based on if we've eaten a lot of the same foods over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot of times with us in the fitness community is, okay, chicken and broccoli, it's working. I'm getting ripped, so I'm just going to continue eating chicken and broccoli. Well, next thing you know, your body's going to start developing an intolerance to that, and you will start having an inflammatory response. But there's some foods that are significantly higher in terms of triggering those cytokines, and those are unfortunately things like dairy. Dairy is very inflammatory. It has to do with the casein proteins, not the lactose. I've done videos talking about that, where casein protein is really the one you have to watch out for. Beta casein contains BCM7. BCM7 is very, very bad when it comes to triggering inflammation. There's little foods like even, overconsumption of protein, which is just huge. Okay, inflammation at its core is ultimately rogue proteins, free radicals. You have rogue proteins, or rogue proteins that are being released that aren't being metabolized. So when you're eating a lot of excess protein, you can see how that's inflammation at its core. So I always talk about, finding where your positive nitrogen balance is and just slightly remaining there. And for those of us that might be listening, those of you might be listening and don't know what positive nitrogen balance is, the body always has to be in a positive nitrogen balance if you want to maintain your muscle mass, or if you want to be building muscle mass. You need to be at a neutral nitrogen balance if you just want to just maintain. And if you're in a negative nitrogen balance, you better slam some BCAAs or eat some protein because you're catabolizing and breaking down muscle tissue. So once you're in a positive nitrogen balance, you're in a positive nitrogen balance. The only thing that matters is additional calories at that point. It doesn't have to be calories from protein. So you get yourself so you're in a positive nitrogen balance, so your body's in the state of building, then increase your calories from there. But you can increase your calories through healthy fats, through veggies, through the right root vegetables. You don't have to keep cramming protein and just, straining your body. But instead of the things that you should avoid, I mean, look at things that you can add. Simple things like apple cider vinegar. I mean, super, super simple. It's the acetic acid in the apple cider vinegar that makes it so powerful. And it's actually the fact that our body's pH is usually too alkaline.
How much per day of that, Thomas?
I drink this stuff. I usually do like 2 tablespoons 3 times per day. That's my main thing. So I do it fasted, and then I do it with lunch and with dinner.
And what's the benefit of that?
So it's mainly just from the fact that there's 2 things. It's the negative feedback loop that it causes. So essentially causing your stomach pH to balance out a little bit more so you can have the right amounts of stomach acid actually digesting. But then the other thing is our bodies are typically too alkaline. They're usually not too acidic, and people have it backwards. Like, we need to get our bodies more alkaline. No, if you look at most patients that go into any kind of practice and actually look at that, almost all of them are too alkaline. And the acetic acid actually helps balance that out. That's not to say you can go and just have lemons and have the same effect. Acetic acid is very, very unique in that it also has the ability to help cross through the blood-brain barrier and help things with the brain too. So that's the main benefit of it, is just helping balance your body's pH the way that it should. You're not trying to make it more alkaline. You're not trying to make it too acidic. You're bringing it back to baseline where it should be. And that's really the main thing. There's a lot of things when it comes down to like helping your existing gut flora. It's naturally a fairly prebiotic food, so it helps your existing gut flora. So if you're taking your probiotics, you're taking care of your gut, then apple cider vinegar can help that existing flora flourish that much more.
So are you saying apple cider vinegar, take that 3 times a day, so morning, lunch, and evening?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of doing it fasted. So I take it fasted in the morning, right when I roll out of bed. And for those of you that need to do your morning ritual, it definitely helps things get moving too. And then in the afternoon, I usually do it, right after lunch. And then the dinner time, I take it maybe 20 minutes after dinner, just because for me, this part might be placebo, but it does seem to help me digest dinner a little bit better too. That very well might be placebo effect, but I usually wait about 20 minutes and then have it.
Now, what's your take on like squeezing lemon in your water in the morning?
Yeah, so I definitely am a fan of that. I don't do it every single day just because I've gotten pretty good at listening to my body and knowing when I need it. But there's a lot of different positive benefits to that as well. Again, talking about just being able to help regulate kind of your stomach acid levels. People might not think that when you're adding more acid, it would help reduce potential stomach acid levels or reduce acid reflux and help digestion, but it's a negative feedback loop. The body starts seeing more acid, so those pumps actually don't have to produce as much. So then you're actually reducing your actual ability to have more of an acid reflux issue. And of course, lemons have a lot of other properties. They do a lot of things when it comes down. Even, in fact, there's one study that had even shown that even just the aroma of lemons actually reduce serum cortisol levels just from stress. So just the aroma alone. But so there's a lot of powerful things that you can do with lemons. There's a lot of link to autoimmune condition, just in kind of chilling out some of the cytokines and stuff like that. And anything you do in a fasted state, you're going to be that much more receptive to, simply because you're fasted. You don't have other things going on.
I love it. This guy is just, I can go on for you for hours, Thomas, about talking about this stuff. It's like, we only have a certain period of time today. Well, I'm going to kind of change the thing to one more topic I want to go for the Peak 5. One thing I want to ask you is, you talk about living close to the earth, because one thing I noticed about you is you're a very kind of earth kind of guy, outdoorsy guy. You got horses, you got dogs, and you also come from a background of having 18 horses when you were even younger yet. So do you mind kind of explaining that and what you mean by that?
Yeah, so when I say living close to the earth as possible, it's just about everything that you do in life, remember where you came from. Okay, so whether that's your mindset, remember what we are when we're born, but also remember what we are when we die, not even spiritually, but physically. Okay, and that's just the thing, is I'm a spiritual person, so I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of saying we just turn to dirt when we die, but our physical bodies turn to dirt. So always remember that. Remember where we come from. And I get, I catch a lot of flack from the fitness community because of this, but, eat organic, eat close to the earth, eat that way, because it's so much more bioavailable. And then we have to look at simple things of just appreciating where we come from, appreciate the earth that we live on. It's so easy for us to live just right now and not think about what's going to happen in 100 years. But if you have appreciation for that, I promise you can get more out of your body. So when I say, live close to the earth, I mean live a down-to-earth life. If you've ever met someone and you said, that person's really down to earth, I want you to try to quantify what actually makes them down to earth. We just naturally, inherently kind of say that about some people. Oh, he's a salt of the earth guy. He's just a really down to earth guy. Okay, we just naturally know it. That's something pretty powerful, but break it down. Break it down like what makes Bob down to earth? Well, he's just really mellow. He's just really cool. He's even keeled and he's just honest and he's just truthful and he's just friggin' earthy, you know? So that's just the lifestyle that I really want to promote, you know? And it's just like live life close to the earth. Everything you get out of the ground should be close to the earth. When you work out, you should be working out in a fashion where you're grounded. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger was about that. You know, he had it right before so many of us did when it came to mind-muscle connection and truly just being able to be in somewhat of a meditative state. He liked to work out barefoot so that he could actually feel the floor and feel the ground. I've gotten kicked out of gyms for doing that because I look like a crazy person. But I'm not just some hippie, but it's just like you do want to pay attention to that. So that's what I mean by living a down-to-earth lifestyle and living close to the earth.
Now, what about your other thing that I noticed in social media? I saw a post from you that I mentioned at the beginning when we were talking before the interview. The 1 week of social media fasting. I think you're with your wife. Yep. You guys are gone somewhere. That to me just really opened my eyes. I was like, oh, I gotta know how he does that. Like, I want to know his technique. So, what did you do for that process? And also, how did you keep your social media going when you were gone?
Yeah. So there's two things. I mean, there's always a level of, you know, my business has so much on social media. That means that I have a lot of things that are they're evergreen and creating good shareable content that's going to continue to go, you know, relatively viral, if you will, even when I turn it off or when I just step away. I also have a fair level of advertisements that are always running in the background and keeping engagement, you know, keeping a financial investment in there all the time, which eventually, you know, you build up to that. So, you know, fortunately now I'm at a point now where I could step away, but a lot of it comes down to just doing it and testing it. I've tested, you know, okay, I'm going to go a 3-day fast and see how it feels if I just don't touch social media. And, you know, I've actually looked at the metrics and I'm like, wow, my engagement increases. And just to get tangible with you, when you look at your metrics, every time you post something, the Facebook algorithm is going to recognize that you have a certain level of people that are hiding your posts and a certain level of people that are hiding all posts from you. It doesn't matter how popular you are. People are always going to hide posts just because you're reaching a lot of people. So what the mathematical way you have to look at it is every time you post, you have a positive engagement and you always have a level of negative engagement. Well, the Facebook algorithm is going to measure that. And if you're actually going to take a step away, well, then you're not putting any content out there. So you're not eliciting a positive nor negative. You're just continuing to actually have the shareable content that was going on from weeks prior. That is purely positive engagement because if people are sharing it, it's positive engagement. So you're actually just stopping and only allowing positive engagement to continue. So after 3-4 days, I come back and I post something and my posts go further. And I'm like, wait a minute, wow, that was amazing. So I had sort of a proof of concept that I could take a step away and everything wouldn't crash and burn. But also just being able to recognize what social media is doing to us. And this is coming from someone that lives on social media as far as most people would be concerned. They look at me like, Thomas, you're always on social media. No, I'm on Facebook for about 12 minutes a day planning what I'm doing. You know, but it's the fact that it has made us all so just constantly feeling judged, and we're constantly just we're putting ourselves out there, and we're constantly stressed about what other people are going to think, and it's just made it very, very unhealthy. And we need to be able to step away. You need to be able to prove to yourself that you can live without it. Because I've had days where I wake up where I say, if Facebook were to implode, would I even have a business?
Right.
Would people even know who I am anymore? You know, and then that comes that self-actualization that you have to say, I do have self-worth outside of this. I need to stop seeking validation from everybody else that's out there. And fitness people, if you're listening to this, get real with yourselves because you are seeking validation. You know, your selfies, everything like that, although it helps you feel good and it helps you get your image out there and you're building your brand. You'd be lying to me if you told me that you weren't checking how many likes you got and getting some validation out of it. And you would be lying to me if you didn't sleep better at night if you got an all-time record number of likes on a new selfie. We've all been there in the health and fitness world, and it's totally natural. But you have to be able to step outside the box and realize that that is what's happening, and life does go on outside of social media. And then it just makes it all the more rewarding when you come back and everyone's just fine and dandy and it's all good. You know?
Wow.
So
I love that.
It's my 2 cents.
So here's a question for you, Thomas. So the posts you talked about that are almost like organic and evergreen content, are those posts, because you obviously have a lot of videos that have gone out over the time, is that typically a sponsored like advertising that you put out for a Facebook ad, or is that just organic content that maybe was sponsored for a month and it's organic for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so it depends. So a lot of times, the Facebook algorithm is always changing, so you have to just keep a finger on the pulse of just what's working at the time. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll put a post out organically and see what happens, see how the overall engagement is, and I can get a good feel if it's got good engagement. Then I'll go ahead and throw some dollars behind it. Then I'll go ahead and say, okay, let's get this one some steamrolling effort. Let's push it forward. Let's give it the nudge that it needs, especially if I'm about to take a little bit of a break. Let me give this a boost. Don't be afraid to spend a couple $100 if you're investing in yourself and you're doing it. You're gonna get an ROI in some way or another. It all comes out. And so that's my way of looking at it. If I post something, even if I go back and I look through, okay, 3 weeks ago, this post on carrageenan and almond milk seemed to crush and did really well organically. So that I know that now if I throw $100 behind it, it's going to do exponentially better. Let me go ahead and keep that going. So there's constant engagement, constant people hitting my page, and then I'm good. Then I'm at least feel comfortable that I can take a step away.
So I got a question. So for your morning routine, like when do you actually, like you mentioned 12 minutes a day for social media on Facebook, okay? So when is that 12 minutes taking place? Is it taking place in the afternoon, in the morning? I'm just really curious on Thomas's morning rituals and routines, why he gets himself going. Like, do you spend 4 hours a day on content creation and then 12 minutes in the afternoon Facebook and the rest with your wife? Kind of what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, so when I say 12 minutes on Facebook, that's 12 minutes of actively like mapping out. And I've actually measured, that's on average what I spend measuring out, whether it's scheduling posts or, I produce content like crazy. I still have, I think, 600 videos on YouTube that haven't even, like they're loaded on YouTube that haven't been locked off of private.
Unreal.
So we just, I've built my business around how can I just dominate on content and just get good information out there. So for me, a lot of times it's just curating now. It's just so, with the exception of live broadcasts when I hop on them and, I'll be on for 30 minutes doing a live broadcast, but I don't count that really. My morning routine, I won't touch Facebook in the morning just because I find myself, I measure the pace of my day based on what I see on Facebook in that morning, whether it's scrolling through a news feed or whether it's checking my page, because there's a lot of negativity, even for someone, that I'm putting a lot of valuable health information out there. I still get a good 3 or 4% of people that hit me that just hate me, and the last thing I want to wake up to in the morning is, someone hopping on and sending me a message saying that, my information on inflammation or my information on this is inaccurate, and then send me this entire dissertation as to why I'm a terrible person and should die. I don't need to see that when I wake up. Yeah. So I definitely don't do that. My morning routine is, purely based around making sure that I am gearing up my body in a very good way for the day. In fact, I adopted what Tony Robbins does in terms of jumping on the trampoline and getting some, it does a lot in the way of just your lymph system and stuff like that. I'll work out. When I'm done working out, I take an ice cold shower. I'm not highfalutin enough to have my own ice plunge, Tony Robbins, but I can at least take an ice cold shower and practice diaphragmatic breathing that way. We could probably have a whole nother follow-up segment just on practices with breathing and stuff like that. But yeah, my morning routine is purely based around making sure that I'm getting my head in the right space. And my workouts are sacred to me. They're very important to me. And I don't want to have since I work out in the morning, the last thing I want to do is dive into work. That's something that might disrupt my focus from my workout. And in case a lot of you have noticed, probably haven't, maybe you've noticed, I don't post a lot of workout content. I hardly ever do. And the reason is because I'm a diet guy. That's what I do. But my workouts are sacred to me, and they always have been. And I'm not about to disrupt that to film it. It's very, very important to me, and I hold true to that. So everything I do is about making sure I can get the most out of that workout so that I can function at the highest level when I get into the office later.
That is powerful. Hey, have you heard of that thing called the cold tub?
Yeah, I have.
Do you have one of those?
I don't, but someone just my business partner told me about it, I don't know, about a month ago. So I started looking into them. I know, they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're actually not that bad for price. It's like they're very reasonable, and you can have them in your house, you can have them in your backyard, whatever. It's kind of cool, so.
That's pretty, yeah, I have to, like I said, I started checking them out when Cam, my business partner, started looking at them, and like, that's pretty cool. The other thing that I really think are really cool are the isolation, and I'm drawing a blank here. Basically, not isolation, but the You know what I'm talking. I'm drawing a complete blank. The chambers that you can go in, the completely sensory deprivation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, those things are cool. So like total sensory deprivation, but they're like 14, 15K for like the low end. I'm like, I think I can just lock myself in a dark room and meditate. So,
yeah, with ice around the outside, eh?
Yeah.
You come to Canada for a week, I'll take you outside here and give you some ice cold therapy. That's awesome, man. Well, let's dive into the Peak 5 because literally we can go on for the next hour. I'm loving what you're putting out here, man. So thank you for sharing.
Totally.
The Peak 5 question. So question number 1 for you, Thomas, is who is someone right now in your life or in your past that was a big influence to you, whether it was a coach or a mentor?
Yep. The first thing, I'm a big fan of just going right off the gut and what pops in my head at the moment. Lately, for some reason, I've been thinking about my very first CEO. His name was Ryan Scott. And it's funny, I've got a call. Something compelled me yesterday to send him a message over Facebook and say, "What's your number? I just feel like I want to catch up." The reason that he's so inspirational for me right now is because as I'm going through these stages of growing my business and hiring people and really, we did 2 million in revenue our first year, and I'm feeling like, wow, this is awesome. Like this is real. I'm noticing myself going through so many of the same patterns that he was as a CEO when he hired me. And he was young. He was 29 at that time. And what he's accomplished and the acquisitions he's gone through with his company are just amazing. So although he may not be the driving force for me to do better every single week, every single day, by the point of this interview right now, he's on my mind and been motivating me a lot. So I have to say Ryan Scott, just the guy that showed me a commission only job where I could absolutely kick some serious tail and make a lot of cash just by putting my nose to the grindstone.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Number 2, what's your most influential book you ever read?
Very simple, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Oh, good book. That's a great book, man.
That one I've read that probably a dozen times. That one, amazing.
Okay, here's a question. What's the most totally different question off topic, but what's a book you've read on self-discipline that you think is just highly, highly valuable?
So books on self-discipline are few and far between, to be honest, but anything by, Jocko, the Navy SEAL guy that's always on Tim Ferriss's stuff. Jocko is great when it comes to just talking about self-discipline in general. He's totally. So I honestly haven't read any of his books, but I've listened to almost all of his podcasts. So he's amazing when it comes to just getting yourself back to focus, back to being disciplined. But there's a book, I don't know if you've read it, called The Rise of Superman.
No, I haven't actually. Rise of Superman.
Yeah, you have to read that. You will absolutely just love that book. It's not so much about discipline as it is about what wires us to be the way that we are and the way that we are extreme. And it relates business people to rock climbers, to skydivers, to everyone that does these extreme sports, and like what happens in your mind, what happens in your body, and why we have the urge to do that, why it's addictive, why we get focused on one thing. So it touches on discipline in a lot of different ways. So that's a great book. You need to read that one.
Totally got that on my list right now, actually. Speaking of discipline, you've heard of a guy named Joe DeCina?
Yeah.
I had him on the show here about 30 episodes ago, and then
Really?
dug into him and went down to his event here in Vermont with his team. And I didn't realize, Thomas, but literally all his team are all like Army veterans.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like and listening to these guys and like their self-discipline tactics from being in the Navy SEALs and Marines, and I'm sitting back just like taking notes. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'd never been in that environment before. It's totally new to me. So you're talking to me about that kind of stuff. It's really neat to learn that sort of stuff.
Totally. Yeah. And like my sister's a captain in the Air Force. My brother's a major in the Air Force. My other brother's a Coast Guard lieutenant. So I come from this family of like military officers. And it's just so funny when I look at just my life dynamic and how like I was talking about my mom and stuff like that. And, side note, like I was in the Air Force for a short amount of time. I got medically discharged, but, it's funny. I was prescribed an inhaler when I was 12. So I ended up getting medically discharged. But anyway, so the point is like it was in our blood to be in the military just based on that discipline. So it's so funny. So I live in an area where it's a little hard to get veterans, but my first thing when I started hiring people was, I want to hire veterans, like just because I know, first of all, there's a lot that are just misunderstood going into the workplace. It's very difficult. Like my sister is now out of the Air Force and she's she works for Monster.com as their head of military exit recruiting. So she works along with General Petraeus and all these guys, bringing really good jobs, really good officers that are coming out of the military because they know they have the discipline. But these poor guys have been in a world where they just don't know how the civilian sector operates. So you've got these like just fired up, high horsepower people that can just kick ass in everything they do, but they've just been doing something for 20 years and they just need to be shown the ropes. And just so it's like I wanted to make it a mission of mine, and that's actually one of my goals for 2017 is I want to tap into that world as much as possible and really help the military understand social media and how they can make money online with that if they really put their mind to it. So it's so funny, man. The military is just, their tactics are just unreal for discipline.
Oh, totally. You can definitely tell you got lots of tactics. Surprised you weren't from the Marines. Number 3, Thomas, what's your most influential quote?
Probably the one that's, I don't know if people are going to watch this, but I've got one tattoo on my shoulder that says, money doesn't wait atop the hill, glory doesn't wait atop the hill, all that waits atop the hill is the top of the hill.
Nice.
And essentially what that means is just like it implies. Okay, there's no money at the top of the hill. There's no glory at the top of the hill, just the top of the hill. So what does that mean? Just frickin' do it. Do it because you want to. Do it because you love it. Don't try to have anything else attached to it. Just frickin' do it.
Love it. Number 4, if you could tell your 20-year-old self one lesson, and you want to share in your age as well there, Thomas, if you don't mind, what would that lesson be?
Yeah, so I'm 28, so it's only 8 years ago. So I'm still just a baby, I guess. But, well, probably put down the donut. No. No. Honestly, I would say pick up the phone and call your dad. That's totally unrelated than a lot of things. But, seeing my dad, more or less, for lack of a better term, he's in hospice, so on his deathbed. Yeah, I wish I picked up the phone and called him more.
Wow.
So.
Number 5, if there was one thing you can contribute to in the world with no limitations whatsoever, what would that contribution be?
I would try to save every possible animal that I could. That's like, if I could open up the largest sanctuary and staff it and have unlimited resources and just pull every animal out of a kill shelter and put them into a safe place, hands down 100%, that's what I'd do.
Wow, that is powerful, man. Thank you. Thomas, this episode has been absolutely off the charts. I can't wait to bring you on for number 2. You just got so much wealth and knowledge. I don't know when we actually even offer somebody to come on number 2 live on a show, but I'm sitting here thinking I got to hold back. I'm like, well, our show's only 45 minutes long. We've already gone over. So, Thomas, thank you so very much for all your wisdom. Is there anything else you want to share before we kind of talk more about you and also where they can find you online?
Well, I think they can find me anywhere. They're probably like, I've seen enough of this guy already. Facebook, just type in Thomas DeLauer and you'll see me. YouTube, again, Thomas DeLauer. I've got a lot of content there. ThomasDeLauer.com. I've always got my, good information there. I've got my blog content there. OrganicHealthProtocol.com is my cleanse protocol. That's like the inflammatory reboot that I've worked on. And then I don't have any, I'm working on that study with UCLA right now, but that's going to come to fruition later. So I'll post some stuff on that, but yeah, social media is the best place to find me now. And, but yeah, that's,
and all your YouTube videos they're on your Thomas DeLauer YouTube page as well?
Yep. They're all there.
The 600 plus videos you have on there?
Well, so I've got, I think right now there's about 300 that are live. I've got 600 additional that are unlisted. So I create a ton of them and then I put them out there and then I drip them out when I see fit.
Okay.
And I guess the words to the listeners, the viewers is, it's the beginning, well, at least at the time of recording this, it's early 2017. And, don't set yourself forward with goals this year. Set yourself forward to live with intention. It's what I always say. Live every day with intention of what you want to be that day, and your goals will manifest themselves. So, don't be a sheep. Don't just set a goal. Just live every day with intention and just live life to your absolute freaking fullest.
Thomas, been a pleasure. You're an absolute beast, full of energy, full of motivation, and full of incredible knowledge. Guys, go follow him on his Facebook page. Watch one of his inspiring videos. And Thomas, thank you again for being on the show. Really, really appreciate it.